Welcome to Advocacy Talks, a podcast from the advocacy team at Vision Ireland. Here's what's coming up on this episode.
She asked me if I was doing the Riverdance summer school that year, and it really broke my heart to say no. And I knew I wanted to do the summer school, but for me as a disabled individual, I didn't know how I was going to cope. Then in November of that year, I applied for the Riverdance summer school.
And now, here's Madeline McNamara.
Hello everybody, Madeline here and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for Advocacy Talks today. It's really a pleasure to have you all with us. In our last episode, I spoke to Stuart Haxall, who was the first person in Ireland to receive the Luxturna gene therapy. And it was a fascinating conversation. So if you did miss that, please do tune in on any of your chosen podcast platforms. Now, today I have something completely different. A wonderful young lady who's joining me today, Méabh Conneely, who is an amazing Irish dancer who also just happens to be blind. So I'm really thrilled to have her come talk to me today on Advocacy Talk. So welcome, Méabh.
Thank you so much, Madeline, for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're really welcome. It's fantastic to talk to you. So I thought we'd just kick off by kind of asking you how and why you got into Irish dancing. So tell us about that journey.
So initially, I was like any average 4-year-old. I guess here in Ireland, I know it's different in other countries when it comes to dancing, and I think that's, unique to us. But in my specific area, or in a lot of schools in Ireland, post-primary school classes, a lot of it was Irish dancing, or along the lines of, your years in primary school, you would do, Irish dancing or sean-nós, singing or something along those lines, in junior infants. And mine, of course, was Irish dancing. And I fell in love with it from the minute I stepped into that school hall, and it was so nostalgic the last few weeks to step back into that same hall like 15 years later.
Wow.
And I guess also, my granny was a dancer as well before I was. So like my mum, my aunties, my uncle, and none of them danced. It was literally just me, myself, and my granny. Unfortunately, she passed away on my birthday about 4 years ago now.
Sorry to hear that.
She passed away, but I guess for me it was always, keep up the dancing regardless of the challenges that I was about to face. And I guess a year later, little did I know I would end up the way I am. But I definitely am very, very grateful for the fact that I started young.
Yes, because I think you were saying, I think I saw somewhere that you started when you were about 4. Would that be right?
Yeah, I did. I started when I was 4. Yeah, I was like every other average 4-year-old dancer starting in the school hall. And I competed for 10 years, maybe more. I then stopped competing right before COVID hit. And I guess for me, it was that, even though I was facing what I had to face, I very quickly learned that I found the competitive world of dancing just not ideal for myself. I mean, I loved dancing, but it was the performance aspect of dancing that I loved, not the competition. And I think as well, because it's such an individual sport, having started and also starting out in the competitive journey, like it's so different how your mindset changes over those few years of transitioning into the professional world or the performance world of dance as well.
Yeah, so you go from kind of an individual sort of mindset to more of a team, I suppose. Would you say?
I would say I would say vice versa. In all honesty, well, it kind of depends. Like if you're in a school that did teams, as such. I mean, I never did Kelly's, I never did teams, but I always danced solo. Now, obviously, when I turned 15, that all kind of changed. But even now, like you're working in a team, but you're focused on yourself individually rather than focused on your competition or everyone around you as such.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, you've mentioned, when you became 15 and changes that happened. So maybe we can kind of talk about that, because you can tell us maybe a little bit, if you don't mind, about your sight loss journey really then, and how that all happened.
Yeah, so basically, so for me, my sight loss journey, basically for me, so I had a condition called retinopathy of prematurity. So along the lines of, me, it's along the lines of me being born extremely premature. I was very, very sick as a child. Up and down. I was probably one of the sickest babies in the country, in all honesty, at the time.
Wow.
But like it was like it, and it's very, very funny how my sight loss was never the big thing with me and my health until my mid-teens. But basically, yeah, that condition, in a lot of people grow out of it, but in my case, unfortunately, and in rare cases, you do lose your sight. And in my case, I started, especially the last number of years since COVID, I started to get fluid in the back of my retina, and all these different, episodes of visual fatigue and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's also just really, really, for me, I've never met anyone with my specific condition. But I have, and I'm extremely lucky, actually, and to have now that I could say that I've met others with a visual impairment as well. And actually, do you know what? I honestly should say this, because I bet you that they'll be listening to this. But I mean, if you ever had Roisin or Katie Judgeon Levy or Orla Comerford, they're all visually impaired Paralympians, who all medalists in Paris 2024. But I'm very, very lucky to know them three, and they have all supported me in some way, shape, or form the last year, I'd say. And yeah, I guess for me and my visual impairment, I guess because I was always very, very insecure about everything, and I guess I was always visually impaired right up to the age of 15, when I really started to notice my vision just deteriorate all of a sudden.
Okay.
And and I was actually in my junior cert year. If you are Irish and listen to this, you will know what the junior cert year is.
It's a bit stressful.
That was during COVID. That was 2020 as well.
Wow.
So that's first 2 weeks of the pandemic, that, the announcement was gone out and everything. That 2 week period. So the beginning of the week, I found out, or I kind of had that big red flag alert that my vision was deteriorating dramatically.
Right.
And by the end of the week, I found out that I got diagnosed autistic and neurodiverse. So I guess for me, it was finding my feet again and navigating things. And I guess now, as well, I kind of I put up an Instagram post there on the day 6 months as a white cane user. And those, even now I can say, like, God, I don't actually know my life without a cane, even though it's only been 6 short months. And I think, yeah, I do wish I had my cane sooner and things worked out the way they probably should at the start. But unfortunately, due to, lack of funds and stuff, I was told, oh, I'd have it before the leaving cert, or I'd have it. And the big thing was that I'd have it before the Riverdance summer school, which unfortunately for me, I had to go through Riverdance summer school without a cane, without the awareness.
Which is a real challenge. And it sounds very much that everything happened very quickly, though, in the sense that you went just 1 week where you had so many things happening, presumably you had been assessed for the autism some time before, and it can take a while to get the diagnosis through. And then
took 9 years to get my diagnosis. 9
Wow.
years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then the sight loss as well, being told. And how long did it take then from, being aware of the sight was deteriorating to to this level of sight that you're at now, which you might sort of describe to us, kind of what your sight level is now?
So I guess I was always visually impaired. I always had that low level of vision, but I honestly, and I get asked this question all the time, what's it like being registered blind, or what's the difference between that and being visually impaired? Like, it, off the top of my head, I was talking to Orla Comfort there the last day. We were just on about, the from one visually impaired girl to another, the other things that people who are sighted, might not necessarily understand. And one of the big things that came up was body language. So I guess using that as an example, I guess there was a time where, I always I always knew someone was waving at me, or I could see it, or I'd recognize someone off of their coats or something like that.
Yeah.
But by the time I got to, age 15, about that, I started to realize that, people who I would recognize and not those people, or, people would, wave at me, or, say something, and I'm like,
you wouldn't see it.
I don't necessarily know unless you verbally communicate with me.
Yeah. And it can be very difficult for people to understand that, I think, because I'm the same, that people might be walking across on the other side of the road or something and wave at me, or they might be in a car and wave, and I wouldn't see them at all. I'd just be walking, whatever. And then if people don't understand that, they can think you're being rude or whatever, but it's just no, I can't see you.
That's exactly it.
So now your level of sight is really what? Kind of, can you see anything at all?
Okay. So the way I would, just to anyone, how I'd explain my vision. So I am completely blind in my right eye. I've never actually known to have a working right eye. Never had a working right eye, unfortunately. So as of right now, like I'm looking at my laptop 1 meter from me, but I can't see anything from my nose onwards. Like, it's not even black, it's just like my face ends there as such.
Okay.
I have no peripheral vision at all, which is why I'm a cane user in the first place, because I've had those days, and I guess everyone who's visually impaired or who doesn't have peripheral vision will know my next line of walking into specific things. But I've walked into a lot of lampposts in the past.
Not pleasant.
I guess now, when I started to kind of realize it, like in the moment, it's like, wait a minute now, this is why I have my cane, so that I'm not, I don't like to say it, but sometimes you can get injured from these things.
Yeah.
Well,
it sounds like your sight is quite limited, so I think definitely makes sense to have a cane, honestly.
Yeah, I am quite limited as of right now. Like, I only have a small 1/60 vision in my left eye, which, for anyone unaware, like, that 1/60, meaning what the normal eye can see 60 meters from, then my one working left eye can only see it 1 meter from me. Which, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's not pleasant. Like, it's all I've ever known. And I guess for anyone listening, and I don't know if yourself is aware, but Paralympian Ellen Keane, she's an amputee, and I'm meeting her actually on the 19th of April, so I'm really, really looking forward to it. But she brought out a book last year called Perfectly Imperfect, and it was a book that it honestly changed me as a person. And I guess now it, like, I could be saying something completely different right now, but honestly, I think that book has changed me, and Ellen has changed me for the good. And like,
well, it's fantastic to have people that do inspire you and give you, give you comfort. Absolutely. And I think you touched on something there that, it's what you're used to. And I think that is something that's really important to say. I've had vision impairment since birth. And, there are things that are challenging and there are things I wish I could do, but at the same time, I'm kind of used to it, and you live within that, and it's not all bad. I've had, some amazing experiences over my life, and I think that's really important for people to kind of know that just because you have, limited sight doesn't necessarily mean that it's all bad.
Exactly. As Ellen would say, life isn't all sunshine and rainbows at times, but like, I guess my point of view on it is that, God, I have to keep that fake smile on stage, in general life, because if I don't, I'll crumble. Everyone around me could, I have to keep myself up and going for everyone else around me.
Well, let's go back a bit to the dancing, because I know before COVID you kind of stopped dancing, and I'm presuming that was because of everything that was going on. And then of course COVID hit and nobody could do anything, so it was all a bit difficult. And so tell me, how did you get back into the dancing, and how did this Riverdance happen? And I hear you were, got contacted by a famous Riverdance dancer and all of that.
So I guess, so during COVID, I guess when I lost my sight, like, it was all just, I guess I just took a complete year out of dancing. I lost my complete sparkle. I wish I had dancing in my life at that time, but I just, not that I was shying away from it, but it wasn't my comfort at the time. Because my health was my priority.
Absolutely.
And it was Christmas week, December 2021, and to this current day, she's still my mentor. But Anna May Fitzpatrick, she is current principal dancer, dance captain, and she's also the co-director of the Riverdance Summer School as well.
Wow.
With Poik Moyles, who's the CEO of Riverdance. But Anna May sent me probably the most heartwarming, most emotional video message, and I still have it on my phone. I listen to it every now and again. Having her words in my pocket 24/7 just kind of suits me sometimes. But
wow.
Yeah, she reached out, and because I guess the world of Irish dance, once you're in that organisation, everyone kind of knows everyone as such. So I guess I kind of hopped from one person to another, because I had looked up to Anna May and her siblings. I mean, they're a big family, but her brother Fergus as well is also a leading dance captain in Riverdance. They're actually the first sibling lead duo, which is amazing.
Wow.
But yeah, Anna May has just guided me through thick and thin. She has done so much for me, and during the, I guess for her, and I remember, a few days after Stephen's Day, she actually FaceTimed me, and I think we were there on the phone for a good hour and a half.
Wow.
Anyway, it was as if she's taken me by the hand on this now nearly 4-year-long journey, and during the Riverdance-thon, the annual charity Riverdance-thon in 2023.
Yes, tell me, what is that? Because for those who aren't in the kind of Irish dance world, I've not heard of it.
Riverdance-thon. So the Riverdance-thon is the annual charity event that Riverdance hosted. So, Riverdance charity partner with a charity of choice for the Gaiety Theatre run in Dublin, and that year it was for autism, for as I am, and during that day, because I was of course up the entire day, I remember it. I remember the whole day clearly, but I remember, going backstage. It was my first proper performance in a good while.
Yeah.
And I remember, because I know a lot of the cast, but I remember, it was kind of automatic that Porrick assigned me specifically to my best friend Kelly. She is a dancer in the show as well, and I had one massive meltdown overload And I also suffer from selective mutism, so I was gone completely silent in front of Callie for the first time, and I think that kind of raised alarm bells, and everyone was just a bit chaotic around me because my slot was like directly after Riverdance's pop-up performance, so they'd have 3 pop performances during the day, and I was very, very lucky at the time. Even though Anime said to me for years, do not go backstage until the very last second. I was very, very lucky that Anime was backstage during that moment, and she literally just took me by the hand, and we went somewhere quiet and we calmed down, and everything was fine again. But yeah, and then literally after I came back, she asked me if I was doing the Riverdance Summer School that year, and it really broke my heart to say no. And I mean, I guess between myself and myself, Anime has pushed me and she's seen me in the highs and lows, and I guess for me, I knew I wanted to do the summer school, but for me as a disabled individual, I didn't know how I was going to cope. So then in November of that year, I applied for the Riverdance Summer School. Yeah, the process to apply is pretty lengthy. But I eventually, after I auditioned and everything, I got a place, and then unfortunately for me, all the places were gone.
Oh no.
Until they emailed to say that they were adding an extra week, they only had 50 places for that specific week. So I had to go through the process all over again, unfortunately. But I was extremely lucky that I got one of 50 places for the summer school last year in 2024. So you audition essentially months before you actually do summer school.
And tell us about, so the summer school is for a week, is it then?
It is. Yeah, it's essentially Riverdance's summer camp, if you want to put it that way.
And would this be for people who are really aspiring to be professional dancers?
I would say so. I mean, it was my first time doing summer school. I know people who have done summer school. I think one of my friends now, she's going for her 7th time this summer.
Wow.
Or something along them lines. So yeah, I guess the summer school, because they also have a juniors program. So I mean, for us as the older dancers, getting to see the juniors, dancing their showcase on the Wednesday, while we're having our lunch is just it was cute, but it was so nice.
So how did that experience go then, in terms of just maybe tell us a little bit about how they were able to facilitate you as a person with very limited sight to participate in that Riverdance summer school, and to learn the dances and things like that. That would be really interesting.
So yeah, so I guess for me, I don't know if I was necessarily told much of what was going to happen or what was going to go on. I was more so going off of what my friends were all saying would happen, and because being autistic, I purely rely on routine, and if that routine is broken, I think we all know what's next on the cards. But anyways, yeah, in terms of my vision, I think because I was the first visually impaired, actually I should correct myself because I am not visually impaired anymore. As the first registered blind student to ever do the Riverdance Summer School, I think everybody around me, friends, group, and also my instructors, were all, I wouldn't say clueless, but I think there was a huge barrier of miscommunication and awareness. And the whole visually impaired aspect of things. And I guess for me, I'm very, very lucky that I know a lot of the cast and I have a good relationship with the cast, because the majority of the lead dancers in the show would be your instructors for the summer school.
Oh wow.
So I was very, very lucky. But unfortunately, I'll remember it so well. I wasn't necessarily told much of what was going on, but I just remember, having that talk with my parents beforehand, and I just remember them saying, just go in there and, facilitate your own needs if you have to. Because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah. So it's really a case of having to speak up for yourself and advocate, if you like, to say, sorry, this is what I need, or I can't follow this.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, unfortunately, I mean, for me, I remember walking in there on day one thinking, oh yeah, Anime and Fergus are going to be there and everything will be fine. And unfortunately for me, Anime wasn't there because she was instructing the Boston Summer School the week previous. But I was lucky for the first time they brought in assistant instructors. So my best friend Kelly was assigned as an instructor for the summer school, and also one of the other girls in the cast, Sarah Gorin, she was also an instructor. So I was very, very lucky. Even though Anime wasn't there, her brother Fergus was actually doing a talk on the Thursday. So I was very, very lucky, and because I know Anime said she was thinking of me, because I kind of stayed behind to have a little talk with Fergus afterwards. But anyways, on that Monday morning, walking into the studio, I didn't know what to expect, and all the instructors walked in one by one, and I remember my heart sank when Anime wasn't there, because she pinky promised me for 3 years straight that she'd be there.
That's a challenge.
It felt like I could just feel the tension in the room. But then Kelly was last to walk in, and all the cast know my relationship with Kelly and how close and how open I am to her. And I didn't want to cry in the moment, but I, like, straight after the introductions, I ran to the bathroom to sob. I sobbed happy tears though, because I was like, I thought I was just thrown under the bus for 2 minutes, and then everything was just positive again. I mean, I did have my highs and lows, and in terms of being limited to things, due to the fact that I couldn't. So for me, there's certain aspects in the show. In Riverdance, if you've seen the show, you'll know that there's smoke in some of the dances.
Right.
That smoke is actually dry ice. It's a special effect that they use in the show, and that dry ice is essentially a patch of white through my eyes.
Right.
So it blocks the view of the dancing and the action. So some of the dances that I was learning, I wasn't necessarily able to see them, whether they were filmed or not.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom saying, any of the dances that have dry ice, stay away from them.
Yeah.
So that was essentially what
you did. So I guess it was a real kind of learning experience, wasn't it? In the sense that, it was a case of kind of balancing, yes, you're a very capable Irish dancer and you were able to participate to a large extent in that, but also recognising, that there are sometimes limitations, and having to accept that to some extent, that there just might be some things that you're not able to do, but that doesn't mean that you can't be part of, the overall experience. And so you've really been an amazing kind of, the first person doing this and being part of it. So presumably there's been huge learning, by Riverdance in terms of how to support somebody that's got, got the dual things, if you like, of sight loss and autism.
Yeah, it was quite an experience, to say the least. I mean, I had my highs and lows, and I guess for me, having masked for so long as well, not just in terms of autism, but as well, as someone who's registered blind, I would mask my struggles, and I guess one of those experiences, I was actually thinking about it last night, one of those experiences that, say Ellen's book has kind of taught me was, how sometimes, say, I guess for you, like from one visually impaired individual to another, say if I go to someone if someone's sighted, or say, for example, my parents ask me, look at this, or, look at this, and I kind of know instantly that I can't actually see this, but I kind of just go with the flow and say, yeah, that's good, or whatever.
Absolutely. I've been there and done that 1,000 times. Growing.
If someone who is visually impaired was beside me, we'd kind of just laugh our heads off. Because, we know from, our experience that actually between the two of us, we can't actually see this.
Yes. And I think it's kind of finding your way, and I think it's a life journey, certainly for me, as a younger person. I definitely didn't want to be known as a person that couldn't see, and I got very limited sight, and just sort of got on, and I, wouldn't have wanted people to know, but at the same time, it's kind of managing that ability to tell people when I needed help. So it's kind of trying to balance that, knowing when it's appropriate for you, to just be one of it like everybody else, and when you need to be saying,
I had one specific experience or one specific kind of light bulb moment during the Riverdance summer school, where I remember that morning, Kelly kind of just took me out and kind of just talked to me. We had that little heart-to-heart moment, and I remember, I remember Kelly saying, if you feel like you're gonna have a meltdown or anything, I'm only next door.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I kind of just took it as, yeah, you're next door. I don't mind, but I'll handle it. And we had, who did we have instructing us that day? We had Méabh Conneely and we had Jordan McCormack, who are lead dancers in the show. Everybody kind of well, I guess Jordan kind of takes this sometimes, but I guess they would call me Mini Méabh Conneely because our sisters have the same name, same age gap.
Oh.
We look alike. But anyways, I remember having a complete episode of pure visual fatigue, and usually in those times, my brain is going a million miles an hour of, okay, what do I do now? What do I do next? If I leave and I turn the lights off, or if I just lock myself in the bathroom, turn the lights off for 5 minutes, just give myself a complete rest.
Yeah.
But we were running through one of the more important dances, which I'm nearly certain we were running through Riverdance, and because we were getting our rotations, which rotations are like your spots on stage. So even that was needing a lot of adapting in my case.
Yeah.
I just remember having a huge episode of visual fatigue that's completely out of my control.
Yeah.
And I think when you don't realize when you're so vulnerable, and I guess for me then that's where my two worlds, not collide, but that's where I have to see, okay, what's the visual and what's the autism, or what's one or the other. So I knew it was all connected to my vision, but then I had the next hurdle of, who am I going to turn to because Kelly isn't in the room?
Yes.
And I guess you don't realize how much trust it takes in someone to be able to be so open about your needs. But for me as an advocate, I wanted to make sure that everybody in that room, I didn't care how loud I was about it at the time. Apologies, Corey. But I didn't care as long as everybody around me was so aware of the level of vision that I had.
Yeah.
Because for me, I think people around me have to remember that I can't see what they see. And I had this big meltdown.
Oh,
I had
dear.
a full-on meltdown. And I remember one of the guys in my group bringing me outside. It was the first time that I had to step outside the studio necessarily. So that was a red alarm. And I remember Kelly running out to check on me because she was panicked for me.
Yeah.
And I remember her saying, okay, because she wanted to challenge me, even though I was in that vulnerable state of just, I had to get my vision under control. I had to get everything, even though it was out of my control, I had to implement every single,
all the strategies and things that maybe, yes. And I guess it's then a case of trying to recognize when those things are happening and trying to implement those strategies, at the right time, isn't it? But you got through, and that's the main thing. And by the sounds of it, you could kind of really, as you say, a shining light to people out there who, want to take part in the thing that they love, whether that be Irish dancing or something else, and that you can do it. And it's about trying to balance, as you have said, the things that you can do and the things that are more challenging, and then finding different ways of doing things, and kind of trying to make people aware of the needs that you have, because it can be very easy in that situation. And, when you can appear to manage so well, which it sounds like you do, that people very quickly forget. And it's a case of, having to remind people, no, I can't see that. But amazing. I think you're fantastic. And I thank you so much for talking to me today, Maeve. You're an inspiration. So to anyone out there, I was going to say young people, but older people can do Irish dancing as well. So I don't want to be discriminating against anybody who wants to do Irish dancing.
Never too young there.
So it's fantastic to talk to you, and thank you so much. So I'm just going to round up there and just say to everyone, thank you so much for listening today. And if you have any, help that you need, if you have sight loss yourself and want to, have any help from Vision Ireland, you can always find us on our website on www.vi.ie, or also you can call our info line on 1800 911 250. And please do look back at our last episodes, and also, wait. You have to wait and see what the next one is. I don't know yet. We don't know yet what it's going to be. Something exciting, equally interesting. So I really hope that you'll join me then as well. And take care in the meantime. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Advocacy Talks. To get in touch with our advocacy team, send us an email to campaigns@vi.ie. Or why not join one of our local advocacy networks, where you can work together with others to solve some of the biggest problems facing blind and partially sighted people in Ireland. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.